I, the Sisters of Albano, by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley. It was to see this beautiful lake that I made my last excursion before quitting Rome. The spring had nearly grown into summer. The trees were all in full but fresh green foliage. The vine-dresser was singing, perched among them, training his vines. The cicada had not yet begun her song. The heats therefore had not commenced. But at evening the fireflies gleamed among the hills, and the cooing aziola assured us of what in that country needs no assurance: fine weather for the morrow. We set out early in the morning to avoid the heats, breakfasted at Albano, and till 10 o'clock passed our time in visiting the mosaic, the villa of Cicero, and other curiosities of the place. We reposed during the middle of the day in a tent elevated for us at the hilltop, whence we looked on the hillam-bosomed lake and the distant eminence crowned by a town with its church. Other villages and cottages were scattered among the foldings of mountains, and beyond we saw the deep blue sea of the southern poets, which received the swift and immortal Tiber, rocking it to repose among its devouring waves. The Colosseum falls and the Pantheon decays. The very hills of Rome are perishing, but the Tiber lives forever, flows forever, and forever feeds the land-encircled Mediterranean with fresh waters. Our summer and pleasure-seeking party consisted of many. To me, the most interesting person was the Countess Atanasia 500, who was as beautiful as an imagination of Raphael and good as the ideal of a poet. Two of her children accompanied her, with animated looks and gentle manners, quiet yet enjoying. I sat near her, watching the changing shadows of the landscape before us. As the sun descended, it poured a tide of light into the valley of the lake, deluging the deep bank formed by the mountain with liquid gold. The domes and turrets of the far town flashed and gleamed. The trees were dyed in splendor. 2 or 3 slight clouds, which had drunk the radiance till it became their essence, floated golden islets in the lustrous empyrean. The waters, reflecting the brilliancy of the sky and the fire-tinted banks, beamed a second heaven, a second irradiated earth at our feet. The Mediterranean, gazing on the sun, as the eyes of a mortal bride fail and are dimmed when reflecting her lover's glance, was lost, mixed in his light, till it had become one with him. Long our souls, like the sea, the hills, and lake, drinking in the supreme loveliness, we gazed, till the too full cup overflowed, and we turned away with a sigh. At our feet there was a knoll of ground that formed the foreground of our picture. 2 trees lay basking against the sky, glittering with the golden light, which like dew seemed to hang amid their branches. A rock closed the prospect on the other side, twined round by creepers and redolent with blooming myrtle. A brook, crossed by huge stones, gushed through the turf, and on the fragments of rock that lay about sat 2 or 3 persons, peasants, who attracted our attention. One was a hunter, as his gun, lying on a bank not far off, demonstrated, yet he was a tiller of the soil. His rough straw hat and his picturesque but coarse dress belonged to that class. The other was some contadina, in the costume of her country, returning, her basket on her arm, from the village to her cottage home. They were regarding the stores of a peddler, who with doffed hat stood near. Some of these consisted of pictures and prints, views of the country, and portraits of the Madonna. Our peasants regarded these with pleased attention. "One might easily make out a story for that pair," I said. "His gun is a help to the imagination, and we may fancy him a bandit with his contadina love, the terror of all the neighborhood, except of her, the most defenseless being in it." "You speak lightly of such a combination," said the lovely countess at my side, "as if it must not in its nature be the cause of dreadful tragedies. The mingling of love with crime is a dread conjunction, and lawless pursuits are never followed without bringing on the criminal, and all allied to him, ineffable misery. I speak with emotion, for your observation reminds me of an unfortunate girl, now one of the Sisters of Charity in the convent of Santa Chiara at Rome, whose unhappy passion for a man, such as you mention, spread destruction and sorrow widely around her. I entreated my lovely friend to relate the history of the nun. For a long time she resisted my entreaties, as not willing to depress the spirit of a party of pleasure by a tale of sorrow. But I urged her, and she yielded. Her sweet Italian phraseology now rings in my ears, and her beautiful countenance is before me. As she spoke, the sun set, and the moon bent her silver horn in the ebbing tide of glory he had left. The lake changed from purple to silver, and the trees, before so splendid, now in dark masses, just reflected from their tops the mild moonlight. The fireflies flashed among the rocks, the bats circled round us. Meanwhile, thus commenced the Countess Athanasia. The nun of whom I speak had a sister older than herself. I can remember them when as children they brought eggs and fruit to my father's villa. Maria and Annina were constantly together. With their large straw hats to shield them from the scorching sun, they were at work in their father's podder all day. And in the evening, when Maria, who was the elder by 4 years, went to the fountain for water, Annina ran at her side. Their cot, the folding of the hill conceals it, is at the lakeside opposite, and about 1/4 of a mile up the hill is the rustic fountain of which I speak. Maria was serious, gentle, and considerate. Annina was a laughing, merry little creature with the face of a cherub. When Maria was 15, their mother fell ill and was nursed at the convent of Santa Chiara at Rome. Maria attended her, never leaving her bedside day or night. The nuns thought her an angel, she deemed them saints. Her mother died, and they persuaded her to make one of them. Her father could not but acquiesce in her holy intention, and she became one of the Sisters of Charity, the nun-nurses of Santa Chiara. Once or twice a year she visited her home, gave sage and kind advice to Annina, and sometimes wept to part from her. But her piety and her active employments for the sick reconciled her to her fate. Annina was more sorry to lose her sister's society. The other girls of the village did not please her. She was a good child and worked hard for her father, and her sweetest recompense was the report he made of her to Maria, and the fond praises and caresses the latter bestowed on her when they met. It was not until she was 15 that Annina showed any diminution of affection for her sister. Yet I cannot call it diminution, for she loved her perhaps more than ever, though her holy calling and sage lectures prevented her from reposing confidence, and made her tremble lest the nun, devoted to heaven and good works, should read in her eyes and disapprove of the earthly passion that occupied her. Perhaps a part of her reluctance arose from the reports that were current against her lover's character, and certainly from the disapprobation and even hatred of him that her father frequently expressed. Ill-fated Annina, I know not if in the north your peasants love as ours, but the passion of Annina was entwined with the roots of her being. It was herself. She could die, but not cease to love. The dislike of her father for Domenico made their intercourse clandestine. He was always at the fountain to fill her pitcher and lift it on her head. He attended the same mass, and when her father went to Albano, Velletri, or Rome, he seemed to learn by instinct the exact moment of his departure, and joined her in the podder, laboring with her and for her, till the old man was seen descending the mountain path on his return. He said he worked for a contadino near Nemi. Annina sometimes wondered that he could spare so much time for her, but his excuses were plausible, and the result too delightful not to blind the innocent girl to its obvious cause. Poor Domenico, the reports spread against him were too well-founded. His sole excuse was that his father had been a robber before him, and he had spent his early years among these lawless men. He had better things in his nature, and yearned for the peace of the guiltless. Yet he could hardly be called guilty, for no dread crime stained him. Nevertheless, he was an outlaw and a bandit, and now that he loved Annina, these names were the stings of an adder to pierce his soul. He would have fled from his comrades to a far country, but Annina dwelt amid their very haunts. At this period also the police established by the French government, which then possessed Rome, made these bands more alive to the conduct of their members, and rumors of active measures to be taken against those who occupied the hills near Albano, Nemi, and Velletri, caused them to draw together in tighter bonds. Domenico would not, if he could, desert his friends in the hour of danger. On a festa at this time, it was towards the end of October, Annina strolled with her father among the villagers, who all over Italy make holiday by congregating and walking in one place. Their talk was entirely of the Ladri and the French, and many terrible stories were related of the extirpation of banditti in the kingdom of Naples, and the mode by which the French succeeded in their undertaking was minutely described. The troops scoured the country, visiting one haunt of the robbers after the other, and dislodging them, tracked them as in those countries they hunt the wild beasts of the forest, till drawing the circle narrower, they enclosed them in one spot. They then drew a cordon round the place, which they guarded with the utmost vigilance, forbidding any to enter it with provisions, on pain of instant death. And as this menace was rigorously executed, in a short time the besieged bandits were starved into a surrender. The French troops were now daily expected, for they had been seen at Velletri and Nemi. At the same time, it was affirmed that several outlaws had taken up their abode at Rocca Giovane, a deserted village on the summit of one of these hills, and it was supposed that they would make that place the scene of their final retreat. The next day, as Annina worked in the Poda, a party of French horse passed by along the road that separated her garden from the lake. Curiosity made her look at them, and her beauty was too great not to attract. Their observations and address soon drove her away, for a woman in love consecrates herself to her lover and deems the admiration of others to be profanation. She spoke to her father of the impertinence of these men, and he answered by rejoicing at their arrival and the destruction of the lawless bands that would ensue. When in the evening Annina went to the fountain, she looked timidly around and hoped that Domenico would be at his accustomed post, for the arrival of the French destroyed her feeling of security. She went rather later than usual, and a cloudy evening made it seem already dark. The wind roared among the trees, bending hither and thither even the stately cypresses. The waters of the lake were agitated into high waves, and dark masses of thundercloud lowered over the hilltops, giving a lurid tinge to the landscape. Annina passed quickly up the mountain path. When she came in sight of the fountain, which was rudely hewn in the living rock, she saw Domenico leaning against a projection of the hill, his hat drawn over his eyes, his tabarro fallen from his shoulders, his arms folded in an attitude of dejection. He started when he saw her. His voice and phrases were broken and unconnected, yet he never gazed on her with such ardent love, nor solicited her to delay her departure with such impassioned tenderness. "How glad I am to find you here," she said. "I was fearful of meeting one of the French soldiers. I dread them even more than the banditti." Domenico cast a look of eager inquiry on her, and then turned away, saying, "Sorry am I that I shall not be here to protect you. I am obliged to go to Rome for a week or two. You will be faithful, Annina mia. You will love me, though I never see you more." The interview, under these circumstances, was longer than usual. He led her down the path till they nearly came in sight of her cottage. Still they lingered. A low whistle was heard among the myrtle underwood at the lakeside. He started. It was repeated, and he answered it by a similar note. Annina, terrified, was about to ask what this meant, when for the first time he pressed her to his heart, kissed her roseate lips, and with a muttered carissima addio, left her, springing down the bank. And as she gazed in wonder, she thought she saw a boat cross a line of light made by the opening of a cloud. She stood long absorbed in reverie, wondering and remembering with thrilling pleasure the quick embrace and impassioned farewell of her lover. She delayed so long that her father came to seek her. Each evening after this, Annina visited the fountain at the Ave Maria. He was not there. Each day seemed an age, and incomprehensible fears occupied her heart. About a fortnight after, letters arrived from Maria. They came to say that she had been ill of the malaria fever, that she was now convalescent, but that change of air was necessary for her recovery, and that she had obtained leave to spend a month at home at Albano. She asked her father to come the next day to fetch her. These were pleasant tidings for Annina. She resolved to disclose everything to her sister, and during her long visit she doubted not but that she would contrive her happiness. Old Andrea departed the following morning, and the whole day was spent by the sweet girl in dreams of future bliss. In the evening Maria arrived, weak and wan, with all the marks of that dread illness about her, yet, as she assured her sister, feeling quite well. As they sat at their frugal supper, several villagers came in to inquire for Maria, but all their talk was of the French soldiers and the robbers, of whom a band of at least 20 was collected in Rocca Giovane, strictly watched by the military. "We may be grateful to the French," said Andrea, "for this good deed. The country will be rid of these ruffians." "True, friend," said another, "but it is horrible to think what these men suffer. They have, it appears, exhausted all the food they brought with them to the village, and are literally starving. They have not an ounce of macaroni among them, and a poor fellow who was taken and executed yesterday was a mere anatomy. You could tell every bone in his skin. There was a sad story the other day, said another, of an old man from Nemi, whose son, they say, is among them at Rocca Giovane. He was found within the lines with some bacala under his pastrano, and shot on the spot. There is not a more desperate gang, observed the first speaker, in the States and the Rignot put together. They have sworn never to yield, but upon good terms. To secure these, their plan is to waylay passengers and make prisoners, whom they keep as hostages for mild treatment from the government. But the French are merciless. They are better pleased that the bandits wreak their vengeance on these poor creatures than spare one of their lives. They have captured 2 persons already, said another, and there is old Betta Tossi half frantic, for she is sure her son is taken. He has not been at home these 10 days. I should rather guess, said an old man, that he went there with good will. The young scapegrace kept company with Domenico Baldi of Nemi. No worse company could he have kept in the whole country, said Andrea. Domenico is the bad son of a bad race. Is he in the village with the rest? My own eyes assured me of that, replied the other. When I was up the hill with eggs and fowls to the piquet there, I saw the branches of an ilex move. The poor fellow was weak perhaps, and could not keep his hold. Presently he dropped to the ground. Every musket was levelled at him, but he started up and was away like a hare among the rocks. Once he turned, and then I saw Domenico as plainly, though thinner, poor lad, by much than he was, as plainly as I now see Santa Virgin. What is the matter with Nina?